This is so embarrassing, so I made this throwaway. My boyfriend and I have been together for a year now, and everything was moving forward smoothly. We have great chemistry, and the intimacy was mind-blowing. Until about 2 weeks ago when we were having pillow talk after a great intimacy session. Then he opened up and mentioned that he loved pink female genitalia and that it made him go crazy, that he preferred it. I told him that, well, that means the majority of people of color girls aren't preferable to him. He shrugged and said that this was what everyone actually preferred, but it doesn't take from the girl. I told him that I disagreed about everybody, because not everyone subscribed to the white ideal. He shrugged again. Honestly, I didn't care much about it at the time. Personal preference, I thought. But now I have been avoiding him like the plague. The thought of him gives me the shudders. He has been texting me every day and trying to call, but I am not ready to talk to him yet. I think I am ending things with him, but I don't think it is polite to do it via text when we have been together for a year, and I am simply not ready to see him yet, so I have been avoiding him. My friends call me the AH, but for different reasons. The majority because I am insecure and felt inferior and dumped a man because of his preference when everything else is great, and he loves me. He made it very clear that this preference doesn't have anything to do with what he wants from a partner. I honestly don't think this is the issue here, though, that I feel insecure. Others because I didn't react strongly enough, but then again, I didn't really think that I had any right to scold someone over their preferences. There's no right and wrong. Have I messed up? #update 1. So I did it and I sent him the text suggested by one of you beautiful Reddit users. He texted me that he wanted to see me, and at least he wanted to know what's wrong, and if he did anything to make me mad. So I texted, I think we should see other people. He answered about an hour later. He said he wanted to come over to talk. So I guess we are having the talk later this evening. Wish me luck, #update 2, next day. So he was here and we talked. I let him do almost all the talking. He started saying that he missed me and that he loved me. I told him that I feel like something switched off, and I got the ick. I don't think it is fixable. He got angry and called me insecure and that he didn't mean it that way. These things aren't important in the scheme of things, and that I am the best he's been with, and not only sexually. I disagreed that I am insecure because I don't recognize myself as one. I am just turned off, and I thought we should call it quits before we waste more of each other's time. It is not like I am the only one who thinks that. Everyone does. Think what? Ask anyone, and those who say otherwise are lying. Like, ask who? Like my friends, they all like white girls, okay? See, you are being insecure again. I don't care because I love you. It doesn't matter. No, it doesn't matter at all. But at the same time, I am not really attracted to you anymore. We can't control these things. He got upset and said, see, we want to give you all a chance, but you are always so dramatic. And you wonder why we prefer white women? Just relax. Be fun. You just said you didn't care. Silent. Then he said, look, I didn't mean it that way, but you all really need to relax. I love you. You are the best intimacy I have had. Then it just got awkward quiet afterwards, so he said he was leaving and asked to just not jump into things. He texted later that things didn't go as he hoped and that he was sorry and didn't mean what he said, then to at least think before giving him an answer. I answered that I was very much sure that this was over and that I didn't need to think things. He called me easily offended. Then the texting bubble was there for almost a minute, so I texted, before you write something stupid in the heat of the moment, don't. It wasn't worth us sinking this low. I prefer ending things on good terms. The bubble disappeared and he just wrote, I just can't believe I am losing you over this. Then I love you. This is it. I didn't and won't answer him. P's everything is paraphrased besides the text. The conversation was longer, but went in this direction. This is my update, now good night. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You haven't said so, but I assume the actual problem you have is not that your partner expressed a preference, but that your partner expressed a preference that doesn't describe you. If hypothetically, my preference is for tall, voluptuous redheads, I'm not going to say that to my short, slim Asian girlfriend. Comment 2. I firmly believe that you can end a relationship with somebody for whatever reason you want. It's a relationship, not a prison sentence. But honestly, I didn't have pussy color as a relationship ender on my 2024 Reddit bingo card. Now, for the update, Thanks for sticking around. The week after the breakup was interesting to say the least, and not the fun kind. I thought I'd feel relieved, but instead I felt like I was walking on a tightrope, trying not to fall into a pit of second-guessing myself. My friends were no help. Half of them thought I was overreacting, and the other half were too busy with their own dramas to lend an ear. Then, out of nowhere, my ex's best friend, let's call him Mr. Medler, decided to insert himself into the situation. He cornered me at the coffee shop, spewing some nonsense about how my ex was devastated and how I should reconsider. He said my ex had been talking nonstop about how he messed up and how he'd do anything to fix things. Mr. Medler was laying it on thick, and I could smell the desperation. It was like they thought they could just trample over my feelings and I'd come running back. I told Mr. Medler to back off, that it was none of his business, but he wouldn't let up, saying that everyone makes mistakes and that I was being too harsh. I couldn't believe the nerve of him, acting like he knew what was best for me. I left the coffee shop fuming, feeling like everyone was trying to control my life. A couple of days later, my ex showed up at my workplace. He had this whole speech prepared about how he realized he was wrong, how he'd been ignorant, and how he'd changed. But it was too late. I could see the pity in my coworkers' eyes as I stood there, being publicly humiliated by this grand gesture. I felt like a doormat, just lying there while people wiped their dirty shoes on me. I told him we were done, right there in front of everyone. He looked like he'd been slapped, and for a moment I felt a twinge of guilt. But then I remembered all the times I'd let things slide, all the times I'd swallowed my feelings to keep the peace. Not anymore. The next day, I found out that my ex had been spreading rumors about me, saying that I was the one who was prejudiced and that I'd taken his words out of context. It was like he was trying to rewrite history, to make himself the victim. I was livid. How dare he try to tarnish my reputation to save his own skin? I confronted him over text, demanding that he stop spreading lies. He denied everything, of course, but I had screenshots from friends who'd heard the rumors. He finally admitted it, saying he was just hurt and didn't know how else to cope. I told him that his actions had consequences, that he couldn't just say or do whatever he wanted without hurting people. The aftermath was messy. Friends took sides, and I lost a couple I thought I could count on. But in a way, it was a relief. It showed me who my real friends were, the ones who stood by me when things got tough. And then, as if things couldn't get any more soap opera-esque, my ex's sister reached out to me. She apologized for her brother's behavior, saying she was ashamed of him and that she knew I deserved better. It was a small comfort, but it meant a lot coming from her. It felt like, in some small way, the universe was acknowledging that what happened wasn't right. The week ended with me sitting in my apartment, alone but at peace. I was done being walked over, done letting others dictate my worth. It was time to rebuild, to focus on myself and the people who truly cared about me. Thanks for reading. Good night. My husband wasted 22 years of marriage with his irresponsible spending and alcohol addiction, so when he ended up in critical condition. After a jail fight, I decided it was time to pull the plug and watch him face the consequences of his actions alone. So I, 52 years old, female, was married to 55 years old, male, for 22 years, together all up for 24 years. We finally separated on New Year's Day of 2024. It wasn't a New Year's resolution, it was just the day it happened. Over the years, he bought so much stuff we couldn't afford. A yacht, a jet ski, a scooter, a racing bike, surfboards, and watches. So many watches. He also loved alcohol, grog for non-Aussies, and sports bet. I worked through the infection 19 times and afterward to pay the bills, to keep a roof over our heads. Worked every weekend to get the penalty rates. The only time I had more than a week off work was in 2023 when I had infection 19. He used any excuse not to work. Too wet, too hot, too much infection 19. I think I have infection 19. It was costing us a fortune for him to keep taking infection 19 tests. For years, I have been paying all the bills, the rent, the electricity, the water, groceries. He paid for alcohol and cigarettes. I stopped doing his tax. He was living his life through his business account. $80+ a day on alcohol plus sports bet, gambling sites, and then cigarettes. I was already subsidizing his employees' wages up until 2022. I couldn't afford to pay his boss as well. We borrowed a significant amount of money from my parents. He put it against his debts, and then proceeded to run them back up. He got drunk most days from 10 a.m. There was always a reason he couldn't work. Late last November, he asked me if I still loved him. I told him I still cared about him, but I couldn't do this anymore. I don't love you anymore, so he took 10 antidepressants. The ambulance crew were more concerned about his level of intoxication. 2 of our kids held his head up while I was on the phone to 000. The next day, they let him out. He's sorry he didn't mean to unalive himself. Yeah, that's great. So we had a few awkward weeks where no one was allowed to talk about what he did. Now fast forward to New Year's Eve, he turns up drunk to my place of work. Proceeds to get completely drunk. And then at home, accuses me of wanting to sleep with a 22-year-old. He can't even stand up. He decides to sleep in front of the bedroom door to keep all predators out and calls me a jerk. The marriage ended that day. I was finally done. He went off to the mental health ward to get treatment for his alcohol addiction. But I was done. I didn't want to be called a jerk anymore. I wanted to be loved properly and respected. And I didn't believe him. So now the truth is in the punch. Yesterday, he comes by to let me know he's in a relationship with the wife of the couple who took him in. So I sent him a message. You freaking scum-sucking piece of shoot. Go frick yourself with your weenie that rarely ever worked. So I have apparently broken the heart he never had in the first place. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I finally got this off my chest and fell asleep. I am just exhausted. I know I'm not the jerk he is, always has been. I'm just pissed off with myself for wasting so much time with a narcissistic fucktard, and I'm still allowing myself to be hurt by him. He actually asked me to take 25% responsibility for him deciding to take an overdose. What the actual frick? The kids are being well looked after and supported. Thank you for all comments. One day he will just be a distant memory. Comment 2. Not the jerk. His children had to hold his head up after he swallowed 10 pills to get the sympathy vote and play the victim. Please don't dare to let this person back into your life or the lives of the children if you can help it. The kids could probably benefit from therapy now, because their father will continue to play these games with them into their adulthood if they don't learn boundaries now. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around. A lot has happened since the last post. Just when I thought things couldn't get any messier, they did. The day after I sent that message, I found out he'd emptied our joint savings account. Every single cent we'd scraped together over the years, gone. He'd blown it all at the casino, trying to win big enough to impress his new fling. I was furious, but not surprised. It was just like him to take the coward's way out, leaving me to deal with the fallout. I had to tell the kids. They were devastated. Not just about the money, but because they'd been holding on to a sliver of hope that their dad might change. That hope shattered when they learned he'd stolen from their future. My eldest, already struggling to pay for university, took on another job. My youngest, still in high school, started selling artwork online to help out. I was proud of them, but it broke my heart to see them take on burdens that weren't theirs to bear. The next blow came a week later. He crashed the yacht. Drunk, of course, he wasn't hurt, but the yacht was totaled, and the worst part? He'd let the insurance lapse. The other party involved was a wealthy businessman who was now suing us for damages. I say us because legally I was still tied to that man and his reckless decisions. I sought legal advice, desperate to untangle myself from this mess. The lawyer was sympathetic but realistic. Divorce proceedings would be long and costly, and with our finances in disarray, it was going to be an uphill battle. I felt trapped, like I was being punished for his sins. Then, as if the universe hadn't had enough fun at my expense, the couple who took him in kicked him out. Turns out he'd been lying to both of us. He wasn't in a relationship with the wife. He'd made it all up. They'd found him stealing money from their business, and just like that, he was back on my doorstep, begging for forgiveness. I didn't let him in. I couldn't. But late at night, I'd hear him outside, talking to himself or crying. It was pitiful, and despite everything, a part of me felt sorry for him. That part was quickly silenced by the anger and betrayal that had become my constant companions. I focused on work, on the kids, on anything that kept me moving forward. I sold the jet ski and the racing bike, anything to make ends meet. It wasn't much, but it was something. I was determined to claw my way out of this hole he'd dug for us, and then yesterday he got arrested, public intoxication and causing a scene outside my workplace. It was humiliating, but there was also a sense of relief. At least he was someone else's problem now. I could breathe just a little, but that relief was short-lived. Today, I got a call from the hospital. He'd been in a fight at the jail and was in critical condition. I was listed as his emergency contact. They needed me to make decisions about his care. The weight of that responsibility, after everything, was almost too much to bear. I went to the hospital, numb. I signed the papers, made the choices that needed to be made. I sat by his bed, watching him. This man I'd spent half my life with, now just a shell of the person I once knew. And in that moment, I accepted it. This was my life now, picking up the pieces of the chaos he'd left behind. I'll keep going, for my kids, for myself. Because that's what you do, isn't it? You keep going. Thanks for reading. My girlfriend dumps me for crying over a broken leg. But when she crawls back after her affair, I shut the door in her face and watch her reputation crumble. Edit. Wow, so this really blew up. Thank you for all the responses. I went to sleep with 90 comments, which was more than I had hoped for, and woke up with 600 plus. I just want to address something I heard a lot in the comments, that apparently there was a huge influx of "girlfriend hates me for crying" posts. While I have no clue why this post isn't fake, though I don't care if you believe me because I got what I needed out of this post, a reality check. Also, I saw that people were talking about 2 weeks of rest and that's it, so I wanted to explain that. There was way more to it, like a painkiller prescription, and that 2 weeks of rest was 2 weeks of bed rest, where I wasn't supposed to really get up or leave the house. Then, an additional 2 to 3 weeks on crutches with a cast with physical therapy if needed. Thankfully, my parents have really good insurance to cover this. Thank you for helping me see the reality of the situation. I may update at some point. So I, 19-year-old male, and my girlfriend, 26-year-old female, Stacy, go to the same college. She worked a couple of years before getting her degree, and we are in similar majors. She grew up in the Deep South and moved here with her mom and sisters when she was 16. She was fairly moderate in her beliefs, so there was no issue until recently. About 3 weeks ago, I was taking the metal stairs down from my apartment with my girlfriend and some friends, and I slipped as they were slick. I fell down and broke my leg. I had never had a major medical issue before, and it was the worst pain I had ever experienced. As I was screaming and crying in pain, my friend called 911, and I was taken to the hospital. I fractured the bone somehow when I fell and was in the hospital for 2 days. Stacy left the first night and didn't come back. When I was released, I asked her to live with me for a few days to help me out. She reluctantly agreed, and she seemed distant through that first week. The next Sunday, Stacy sat me down and said she wanted to break up with me. I was devastated and asked her why. She said she couldn't get the image of me crying on the stairs out of her head, and she didn't see me as a real man anymore. For context, I am 6 feet 2 inches tall, I go to the gym, and I play lacrosse for my local adult team. Again, I was devastated and begged her to stay. She said this is exactly why she was leaving me, and she thought I was stronger than this. I was destroyed and didn't do anything for a week while I recovered from my leg and the breakup. Doctor said rest for 2 weeks. By the end of the week, I got texts from my friends saying how sorry they were that Stacy and I didn't work out, and that they hoped I had made the right choice. I was confused, and my friends told me that Stacy had said that we both decided to break up because we wanted different things. I corrected them and told them exactly why she broke up with me. Apparently, that news spread through our friend group, and everyone is pissed with her. She texted me to say that I'm a jerk and that I ruined her life, and why couldn't I just go along with it? Some of her friends also called me a jerk, and now I don't know who's in the right. So, am I the idiot? Now, for a few comments before the update, comment 1, not the idiot. But there's a reason she could only get a 19-year-old. No man would deal with her BS. She knows she was being unreasonable, and that's why she wanted you to lie. Everything that is happening to her is on her and not you. She's an absolutely horrible person, and you shouldn't talk to her ever again. Comment 2, not the idiot. She's 26, and this is how she acts? Geez. You didn't ruin her life. She's just a shoot human being, and her mask slipped. People found out, and now she's mad. Maybe she shouldn't be so shallow and lie to people she calls friends. Now, for the update. Edit. Wow, so this really blew up. Thank you for all the responses. I went to sleep with 90 comments, which was more than I had hoped for, and woke up with 600 plus. I just want to address something I heard a lot in the comments, that apparently there was a huge influx of "girlfriend hates me for crying" posts. While I have no clue why this post isn't fake, though I don't care if you believe me because I got what I needed out of this post, a reality check. Also, I saw that people were talking about 2 weeks of rest and that's it, so I wanted to explain that. There was way more to it, like a painkiller prescription, and that 2 weeks of rest was 2 weeks of bed rest, where I wasn't supposed to really get up or leave the house. Then an additional 2 to 3 weeks on crutches with a cast, with physical therapy if needed. Thankfully, my parents have really good insurance to cover this. Thank you for helping me see the reality of the situation. I may update at some point. So, after the whole breakup mess, things got even crazier. I was still hobbling around on crutches when I found out that Stacy had been seeing someone else behind my back. Turns out this guy was from one of her classes, and they'd been getting close for months. I couldn't believe it. Here I was thinking she left me because I cried, but she was cheating on me the whole time. Then, one of my buddies, let's call him Mike, came over to my place. He looked really uncomfortable and finally spilled that he knew about Stacy's affair for a while. He didn't tell me because he thought it would just be a fling and didn't want to hurt me. I was so angry at him for keeping it a secret. I felt like everyone was against me, but it didn't stop there. Mike also confessed that he had lent Stacy money a few months back because she told him it was for a family emergency. Now he thought she used that money to go on trips with this other guy. Mike was broke and felt like a fool. I didn't know what to say. I was mad at him, but I also felt sorry for him. A few days later, Stacy's mom called me out of the blue. She was crying and apologizing for her daughter's behavior. She said Stacy had been lying to her too, telling her that I was the one who cheated and that's why we broke up. Her mom was so ashamed and kept saying how she didn't raise Stacy to be like this. I didn't know what to make of it all. It was like Stacy had been living a double life. Then, the biggest shock came. Stacy's new guy dumped her. He found out about her lies and didn't want anything to do with her. Stacy came to my apartment, begging for forgiveness, saying she made a huge mistake and that she wanted me back. I couldn't believe the nerve of her. After everything she did, she thought she could just waltz back into my life. I told her no, that it was over for good. She left in tears, and I felt a mix of satisfaction and sadness. I had loved her, but she was toxic. I needed to move on. The aftermath was messy. Our friend group was divided. Some felt bad for Stacy, while others were firmly on my side. I just wanted to focus on my recovery and my studies. I was done with the drama. But life had other plans. Last week, I got a call from the college. They were investigating a cheating scandal, and somehow my name got dragged into it. Stacy had been accused of helping students cheat on exams, and because we dated, they thought I might be involved too. I had to go through a whole process to prove my innocence. It was stressful, and I felt like I was being punished for something I didn't do. In the end, they found I had nothing to do with it. Stacy was suspended from college, and her academic future was in jeopardy. I felt a weird sense of relief. It was like all her lies and manipulations were finally catching up to her. Now, I'm just trying to get my life back on track. I'm off crutches and my leg is healing well. I'm focusing on my studies and spending time with friends who stood by me. It's been a tense month, but I'm getting through it. Thanks for reading. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.